Translation. Therefore, O king, you should look to the Supreme Lord only, who is one without a second and who manifests himself by different energies and is both within and without. Purport. The Supreme Lord Personality of Godhead is one without a second, but he manifests himself by different energies because he is by nature blissful. The living beings are also manifestations of his marginal energy, qualitatively one with the Lord, but there are innumerable living beings, both within and without the external and internal energies of the Lord. Since the spiritual world is a manifestation of the Lord, uh, internal energy, the living beings within that internal energy, potency, Haribol, are qualitatively one with the Lord without contamination from the external potency. Although qualitatively one with the Lord, the living being, due to contamination of the material world, is pervertedly manifested, and therefore he experiences so called happiness and distress in the material world. Such experiences are all ephemeral, I don't know how to say, ephemeral, and do not affect the spirit soul. The perception of such ephemeral happiness and distress is due only to the forgetfulness of his qualities, which are equal to the Lord's. There is, however, a regular current from the Lord himself, from within and without, by which is to rectify the fallen condition of the living being. From within, he corrects the desiring living beings as localized Paramatma, and from without, he corrects by his manifestations. The spiritual master and the revealed scriptures. Okay, external is spiritual master. Okay. One should look unto the Lord. One should not be disturbed by the so-called manifestations of happiness and distress, but he should try to cooperate with the Lord in his outward activities for correcting the fallen souls. By his order only one should become a spiritual master and cooperate with the Lord. One should not become a spiritual master for one's personal benefit, for some material gain, or as an avenue of business or occupation for earning livelihood. Bona fide spiritual masters who look unto the Supreme Lord to cooperate with him are actually qualitatively one with the Lord. I read it. Bona fide spiritual masters who look unto the Supreme Lord to cooperate with him are actually qualitatively one with the Lord. And the forgetful ones are perverted reflections only. Yudhishthir Maharaj is advised by Narada, therefore, not to be disturbed by the affairs of so-called happiness and distress, but to look only unto the Lord to execute the mission for which the Lord has descended. That was his prime duty. Okay. So here Narad Muni is actually consoling Yudhishthir Maharaj, because he was very upset that his uncle, aunt, and his like Vidura and Dhritarashtra and his wife Gandhari has left for the forest, and they are not in his kingdom anymore. So he's actually lamenting. So here Narad Muni is actually trying to console him and trying to show him the true picture. So this is the actually duty of a bona fide spiritual master, so that whenever in this material world people are in distress, so the bona fide spiritual master is actually shows the true picture to the living beings, that this is not, you should not lament upon this, because this is the we are all the part and parcel of the Lord, and we are here because we are lost and because we are our forgetfulness. So this distress, this material world is a dukhalayam ashashvatam. So padam padam I don't know that shloka, but padam padam ta se vipadam. that in this material world, every step is full of distress. The happiness is, is very temporary. So here he's trying to tell Yudhishthir Maharaj that you should not lament on all these things, and you should just understand the purpose of Lord, that we are the part and parcel of Lord. And Lord also, because we are so lost here, Lord also from within, as a Paramatma sitting in our heart, trying to guide us. But because this, we are so contaminated, and this material world is pervertedly manifested, so therefore the experience of so-called happiness and distress in this material world. So here Narad Muni is actually telling, I don't know the meaning of this ephemeral and do not affect the spirit soul. So I don't know how to say, explain this, but all I could understand from this purport, that Narad Muni is telling that Paramatma also guide us from inside, that we should actually try to surrender ourselves in the lotus feet of Krishna. But when we are not able to do that, we become, entangled in this material world, and then we become the target of Maya, and then we suffer in this in this happiness and distress. By the order only one should become. Yeah, so here they are saying that the spiritual master is the one who can guide you to go back to Godhead, because he is qualitatively uh, with the qualitatively equal with the Lord. So by his order only one should become a spiritual master. And then Narad Muni is saying that by the order of the Lord, one should become a spiritual master and cooperate with the Lord. So cooperating with the Lord is to spreading the name of the Lord, spreading the mission, the ultimate goal to the living being, that we have to go back. And one should not become a spiritual master for personal benefit. So this is very very relevant to this Kali Yuga, that people now becoming a spiritual master for their own benefits, and then they open so many things, and so many philanthropic activities people are doing. And then spiritual master also, they are earning for kathas and everything. It is good that they are guiding people, but the mission should not be earning their own livelihood. The mission should be spreading the Krishna's name and showing the path to the lost living beings to their ultimate home. And bona fide spiritual master who look unto the Supreme Lord to cooperate with him are actually qualitatively one with the Lord, and the forgetful ones a perverted reflection. So the spiritual master is actually qualitatively, so the bona fide spiritual master is actually the Parshad of Krishna. So they come because they are being sent by Krishna like a messenger, that you have to go and tell people that you are lost and this is the right path. But other living beings are just the forgetful, and the forgetful ones are perverted reflection. And those who those who are lost, and they are the perverted reflection. That means, I mean, my understanding here is that because this world is opposite of Goloka Vrindavan, so the people are lost here, they are forgetful. So here, Narad Muni is telling that not to be disturbed by the affairs of so-called happiness and distress, but look only unto the Lord to execute the mission for which the Lord has descended. So this I'm little confused, but to look only unto the Lord to execute the mission for which the Lord has descended, that was his prime duty. So here I think Narad Muni is saying that Krishna, because whenever Krishna comes or on this earth, he has some mission to complete. So he descends for a purpose. So we should be, he should be, help in that mission of Krishna. Rather, he should lamenting on all these things. And there are many beautiful things Prabhupada is mentioning here, but after reading the whole, I just got confused. Yeah, and then we all know that how we are, from the Tathastha Shakti of Krishna, like the marginal potency, and the internal energy of the Krishna is the supreme, his own abode. So and we have read in the past that we are qualitatively one with the Lord, but due to the contamination, we are actually perverted manifestation, and therefore the experience so-called happiness and distress in material world, because we are lost. So that is why we are having all these troubles. And yeah, and there is, however, a regular current from the Lord himself. So that's the Paramatma sitting within our, our heart and guiding us always, that, how we can correct, how we can go back. But we always try to overpower that voice of Krishna from inside, that because we are enjoying here, whenever this happiness comes, we just forget that the troubles will also come someday. We want to just live in that present. But in this material world, there's no such thing as present, past, and future. It's just dukhalayam. It's just all miseries every step. And the true happiness is the abode, the Goloka Vrindavan Dham. And one thing I wanted to share today, I could not complete the lecture. Prabhuji, as I think Mataji or Prabhuji has shared in the lecture with the I forgot Kishori Jani Mataji and His Grace Chaitanya Charan Prabhu, that he mentioned a very beautiful line. Then after studying from such a nice, good engineering college, he realized, that his job, there are 100,000 of people can take up his job as an engineer, but nobody will volunteer to take up the job of spreading Krishna's name, or spreading the knowledge of Bhagavad Gita. So he took this task. So that is actually our like the pure devotees or the bona fide spiritual master, that they are so intelligent. And we know like how intelligent Prabhupada was, and all the other acharyas, that if they wanted, they could also do really good. Like Prabhupada, he was doing business, and then he chose to spread the name of Krishna, and he voluntarily did all this because of Prabhupada we have this. So now Prabhuji was also sharing that if I will not do it, hardly people will come and say that we want to do this. So it is our responsibility that if God has given make us more, he has given us potential that we can spread the name of Krishna, and he has given us this intelligence that we can learn the scriptures and spread to the name of Krishna, and to tell about Krishna to the people. We should voluntarily do that. So I was really inspired how Prabhuji shared that there are hundreds of people those who can come and take up as an engineer or other profession, but it takes a lot of I would say courage to choose to be a sannyasi and to spread the name of Krishna when people are not willing to take it. So I really like that when Prabhuji shared about his experience, and then I can relate that here, that how the bona fide spiritual masters can also make their life better in other way materially, but they choose to do it because they know the true happiness. So that's all I could understand here. There is some word, I don't know its meaning, so maybe I'm not able to explain. Natasha Mataji or any other devotee, how do we pronounce this? Ephemeral happiness, and what does it mean, Mataji, right here in this line?
Hare Krishna Mataji, I think it is pronounced as ephemeral. It just means something that is very temporary, like short-lived.
Temporary, short. Okay. Okay. So yeah, that's the message which I understood. Mataji, if you want to add something or some other points, so any other devotee, please add. Very good.
Thank you, Mataji. You covered everything. I don't have anything.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mataji, for reading and sharing. Any other devotees would like to share anything on this shloka? Okay, so we'll go to the next shloka.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Any volunteers who would like to recite this Sanskrit?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, I can recite.
Yes, Mataji, go ahead.
Soyam adya maharaja
Soyam Madhya Maharaja
Bhagwan Bhuta Bhavana
Bhagavan
Bhagwan Bhuta
Bhavana
Bhavana
Kala Rupo Avatirnosyam
Kala Rupo Vatirnosyam
Abhavaya Suradvisham.
Abhavaya Suradvisham.
Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Shri Krishna, in the guise of all devouring time, Kal Roop, has now descended to the earth to eliminate the envious from the world. I'm sorry, Prabhuji, 1 second. Purport. There are two classes of human beings, namely the envious and the obedient. Since the Supreme Lord is one and the Father of all living beings, the envious living beings are also his sons, but they are known as the Asuras. But the living beings who are obedient to the Supreme Father are called Devtas or demigods because they are not contaminated by the material conception of life. Not only are the Asuras envious of the Lord in even denying the existence of the Lord, but they are also envious of all other living beings. The predominance of Asuras in the world is occasionally rectified by the Lord when he eliminates them from the world and establishes a rule of Devtas like the Pandavas. His designation as Kal in disguise is significant. He is not at all dangerous, but he is the transcendental form of eternity, knowledge, and bliss. His designation as Kal in disguise is significant. He is not at all dangerous. For the devotees, his factual form is disclosed, and for the non-devotees, he appears like Kal Roop, which is causal form. This causal form of the Lord is not at all pleasing to the Asuras, and therefore they think of the Lord as formless in order to feel secure that they will not be vanquished by the Lord. Hare Krishna. So in this shloka, Narad Muni is saying that Lord Shri Krishna, Supreme Personality of Godhead, in the form of Kal Roop or all devouring time, has now descended to the earth. So he has come to eliminate all the envious people from the world. So meaning all the Asuras. And in purport, Prabhupada is describing who the Asuras are and who the Devtas or the Suras or the demigods are. So he says the Asuras are the ones that are envious of other living beings and even of Lord. They're so envious that they don't even want to accept his existence or his authority, and they are always trying to challenge him and always trying to gain more power than him, or with various means of austerities or cheating or various ways. They just want to be most powerful themselves, but ultimately they are only material, and so they are vanquished by time, and time is nothing but the energy of Krishna. So no matter how powerful somebody may be or trying to be today, maybe causing a lot of cruelty like Ravan did or Hiranyakashipu did, they are all asuras, and they did so much. They killed so many innocent people, and but yet they are, in the end, they are all vanquished by the time. So nobody can in this nobody can win over this all devouring time. And like Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita that Kalo Asmi, I am the that great destructor that has come to destroy everybody except you Pandavas. So, and he shows Krishna, so shows Arjuna his Kal Roop, his that Vishwaroop, in which he actually shows how all these Kauravas and their allies whether it's Karna or all the allies, Jayadratha, Drona, Karna, all these great warriors, they are entering into the mouth of this universal form, and that aspect of universal form is described as Kal Roop by devotees. So that is the all-devouring time, Kal Roop, which is very disturbing to asuras because they can see their end. So when Krishna was showing that Kal Roop, there were many people looking upon it, like demigods, great sages, and even demons. And demons were running here and there looking at this form. And Arjun saw that these people were, some with their heads smashed, were stuck in the teeth, ferocious teeth of this form. So Krishna reassured Arjuna, look, this will be the end of these people who are against dharma. This is how they will be vanquished, and I've already actually destroyed them. So in this way, he reassured Arjuna that you can carry on fighting because they are already vanquished by me. So that is how time is, that no matter how powerful or envious somebody may be today, they may think that they are the lord of the world or trying to be the lord of the world. And we see even in our time, right? We have read the history of how these great empires came one after another, whether it is British Empire or Roman Empire, or so many try to rule the world and try to invade so many countries and and they were so cruel to other people, but ultimately they were all these great empires came to an end. So in this way, Prabhupada is saying that so Devtas like Pandavas are the or demigods are the ones that are subordinate to Krishna. They accept his authority. They are his servants and are obedient. They're always worshipping Krishna, and they understand. They're not contaminated by this material conception of life. So they understand what absolute truth is, and that everything else is transient. Whereas Krishna, his form is Satchidanand, eternity, knowledge, and bliss. So this is one of the reasons why he comes to eliminate the envious from the world. I like this word, Sura Dvisham. Queen Kunti also uses this word. Why do you come? And she says that you come to kill the people that are envious of demigods, or envious of basically religious people that are following the dharma. So those are asuras, Sura Dvisham. And in the last line, Prabhupada is saying that that is why some of the asuras would like to believe that the Lord is formless, because they're so terrified of they can only relate to the authority of Lord as Kal Roop, which is very ferocious to them. So rather they like to believe that actually Lord is just formless, because then they feel secure that they will not be vanquished by Lord. But otherwise, the form that they are revealed is the Kal Roop, which is very disturbing to them. Whereas the devotees, his factual form is disclosed, meaning that they exchange relationships with the two-handed form, which is the highest form with which they have loving exchanges, relationships. In temples as deity form also, we have the two-handed form, which is the one that we worship, and is disclosed to his close associates Arjuna and Pandavas and Vidura and Bhishma and other people that are the devotees. And that's all I have to share, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. Please add and correct.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Very nice. Thank you, Mataji. Thank you for sharing. Anybody else would like to share anything? Okay. I don't have anything really to add, so we'll keep reading. Who would like to read this? 113.50. Any volunteers? Like to recite the Sanskrit?
I can read, Prabhuji.
Yes, ma'am.
Nishpaditam devakrityam निष्पादितं
निष्पादितं देवकृत्यम्
अवशेषं प्रतीक्षते
अवशेषं
अवशेषं
प्रतीक्षते
प्रतीक्षते तावद् यूयम् तावद् यूयम् अवेक्षाध्वाम्
आवयूयम् अवेक्षाध्वम्
भवेद्यावद् इवेश्वरः
भवेद्यावदीश्वरः.
Prabhuji, shall I continue with the translation or anybody else wants to read?
Anybody would like to volunteer to read translation and puppet?
Sure,
I can try. Okay, go ahead, ma'am.
Translation. The Lord has already performed his duty to help demigod, and he is awaiting the rest. You Pandavas may wait as long as the Lord is here on earth. Purport. The Lord descended from his abode, Krishna Loka, the topmost planet in the spiritual sky, in order to help the demigod administrator of his material world when they are greatly vexed by the asuras, who are anxious not only of the Lord but also of his devotees. As referred to above, the condition living being contact material association by their own choices, detected by strong desire to lord it over the resources of the material world and become imitation lord of all this survey. Everyone is trying to become an imitation lord and then in competition among such imitation god, and such competitors are generally known as asuras. When there are too many asuras in world, then it becomes hell for those who are devotees of the Lord. Due to the growth of asura, the mass of the people who are generally devoted to the Lord by nature and the pure devotee of the Lord, including the demigod in the higher planets, pray to the Lord for relief, and Lord either descend personally from his abode or deputes some of these devotees to remodel the fallen condition of human society or even animal society. Just disruption take place not only in the human society but also among animal, bird, or other living being. According to the demigod in the higher planet, Lord Sri Krishna descended personally to vanquish asuras like Kansa, Jara, Sangha, and Sisupala, and during the reign of the Maharaja Yudhishthira, almost all these asuras were killed by the Lord. Now he was awaiting the annihilation of his own dynasty called Yadu Vamsa, who appeared by his will in this world. He wanted to take them away from his own departure to his eternal abode. Narada, like Vidura, did not disclose the imminent annihilation of the Yadu dynasty, but indirectly gave hint to the king and his brother to wait till the incident happened and the Lord departed. So I think in this, it's just saying that there are so many asuras and all the in this material world, everybody wanted to be better, want to be like a god, and then they are like asuras. And that time, the god come and uh, uh, kill those asuras. Otherwise, it will become the hell. So, because of the and the who are the true devotee in the nature, and the pure devotee of the Lord will not be able to pray the Lord, and they will not even go to the higher planet. So that's why the God come and kill all those asuras. So Lord Krishna descended to kill asura like Kansa, Jarasanga, Shishupala during the ruling of the Maharaj Yudhishthira. During that time, all the asuras were killed. So now Krishna started his own dynasty, Yaduvansa. And that time, the Narada, like Vidura, they didn't, they told Yudhishthira, the king, they gave hint to the king and his brother that they should wait till, the incident happened and Lord depart from this earth. So I think they were kind of predicting what was going to happen next in the Yadu dynasty. So Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji, thank you so much for reading and sharing. Anybody else would like to share anything from this shloka? All right, we'll keep going forward. So any volunteers who would like to read the Sanskrit here?
I can try, Prabhuji.
Yes, Maji, go ahead.
Dhritarashtra saha bhratra Gandharya cha swa bharyaya
Gandharya cha svabharya
Dakshinena himavata
Dakshinena himavata
Rishinam asramam gata.
Rishinamashramam gataha.
Translation: O king, your uncle Dhritarashtra, his brother Vidura, and his wife Gandhari have gone to the southern side of the Himalaya mountains, where there are shelters of the great sages. Purport: to pacify the mourning Maharaja Yudhishthir, Narad first of all spoke from the philosophical point of view, and then he began to describe the future movements of his uncle, which he could see by his foreseeing powers, and thus began to describe as follows. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Anything you want to share, Mataji, from this?
No, Prabhuji, I just would like to hear from you or somebody.
If anybody want to share anything, they can share. Otherwise, we'll keep reading. I think these are short shlokas. Should we keep reading? Okay.
Yes,
Great. So I'll read the next one. Shrotobhi saptabhi vay. Swardhuni saptadhavyadhat. Saptanam pritaye nana.
Saptanam pritaye nana
Saptashrota prachakshate. Translation: the place is called Saptasrot, divided by 7, because there the waters of sacred Ganges were divided into 7 branches. This was done for satisfaction of the 7 great rishis. So let's go back to the previous one. Here is saying your uncle Dhritarashtra, his brother Vidura, and his wife Gandhari have gone to the southern side of the Himalayan mountains, where there are shelters of the great sages. And the place is called Saptasrot because there the waters of sacred Ganges were divided into 7 branches. This was done for the satisfaction of the 7 great rishis. Okay, so next one. Anybody wants to read the Sanskrit? You recite?
I can recite, Prabhuji.
Yes, ma'am.
Snatmanu swanam tasmin
Savantasmin
tasmin hutva chagnin yatha vidhi
Yatha Vidhi
abhaksha upshantatma sa aste vigiteshana. Translation. On the banks at Saptasrota, Dhritarashtra is now engaged in beginning Ashtanga Yoga by bathing 3 times daily, in the morning, noon, and evening, by performing the Agnihotra sacrifice with fire, and by drinking only water. This helps one control the mind and the senses and frees one completely from thousands of familial affection. Does someone want to read this one? Is someone who has not read yet? Okay, I'll continue. Purport. The yoga system is a mechanical way to control the senses and the mind and divert them from matter to spirit. The preliminary processes are the sitting posture, meditation, spiritual thoughts, manipulation of air passing within the body, and gradual situation in trance, facing the absolute person Paramatma. Such mechanical ways of rising to the spiritual platform prescribe some regulative principles of taking bath daily 3 times, fasting as far as possible, sitting and concentrating the mind on spiritual matters, and thus gradually become free from vishya or material objectives. Material existence means to be absorbed in the material objective, which is simply illusory. House, country, family, society, children, property, and business are some of the material coverings of the spirit, Atma. And the yoga system helps one to become free from all these illusory thoughts and gradually turn towards the absolute person, Paramatma. By material association and education, we learn simply to concentrate on flimsy things. But yoga is the process of forgetting them altogether. Modern so-called yogis and yoga system manifest some magical feats, and ignorant persons are attracted by such false things. Or they accept the yoga system as a cheap healing process for diseases of the gross body. But factually, the yoga system is the process of learning to forget what we have acquired throughout the struggle for existence. Shall we discuss this much, Prabhuji?
Yes, Mataji, that's a good idea. Please go ahead.
So in this one, they're describing what is going on with Dhritarashtra. So Dhritarashtra is now doing Ashtanga Yoga at the banks, on the banks at Saptasrota, and he bathes 3 times a day. He's performing the Agnihotra sacrifice with fire and drinks only water. So in this way, he's controlling his mind and senses and trying to free himself from all these attachments he had developed, all this family affection and other material attachments. So in purport, Prabhupada is describing about yoga, how yoga is meant to purify the conditioned soul, basically to separate so the soul has become contaminated with all this material attachments, with the house, family, country, so many other attachments with their material education, children, property. So much contamination has happened that with this process of yoga, one can try to control senses and mind and focus on the so that senses and mind will not be focusing on the vishya or the sense objects, the material objects, but rather separate them from the material objects or sense objects and focus on the spirit soul. So in this way, the person can eventually come to the platform where they start realizing Paramatma within. So this is a mechanical process, meaning that they have to follow various rules and regulations. So they have to bathe 3 times a day, sit in certain postures, fast as much as possible, and control their breath hairs. And Prabhupada is giving all those, so the various steps of yam, niyam, asan, all those. Let me see. Yeah, yam, niyam, asan. The control of breath, breathing, manipulation of air is pranayam. And then focusing on the absolute person is
Pratyahara,
pratyahara, dharana,
Dharana,
dhyan, and samadhi.
Samadhi.
Yes. Did we do it? I think so.
Amazing, Mataji. Yes, I think so. Yes, very nice.
So yam is basically to not so yam and niyam, right? So yam is basically to not do something, to restrict oneself from things. Niyam is to do some things like follow certain rules and regulations. Asana is these physical postures. Breath control, controlling the life airs, is pranayam. Pratyahara is to focus on, like people sit in meditation and focus on Paramatma within. And then really more intense focus is dharana, then dhyan. And so basically it gets deeper. And finally, person reaches samadhi. But to reach that step, you have to start with a yam and niyam of rules and regulations. I think that's what Prabhupada is elaborating later on. And then he's describing how that in modern times, the yoga has come to mean something completely different. People do just some physical postures only for physical fitness. And so basically their purpose of doing yoga is to maintain their body so they can enjoy with this body more. Whereas the purpose of yoga is to separate oneself from the bodily attachments and focus on the spirit soul more. But actually the way people are practicing yoga these days is that it helps them to enjoy the sense objects more. So they can do more bhog rather than yoga actually. So it is a very false conception of yoga that is spread. And everybody thinks, okay, yoga comes from, Eastern civilization or from India and, ancient civilization, ancient culture of India. But actually the real purpose of yoga is lost. So in this way, it has become a very cheap process, whereas it is meant to attain the absolute truth. It is meant to completely separate oneself from all these attachments, contamination we have developed over time, this material, to decrease the fever of this caused by this material disease. Rather, we do it in such a way that we get more entangled. So that's what I understood so far. Would anyone else like to continue? We have to read from Dhritarashtra. Dhritarashtra was all along engaged in improving.
Mataji, if you're
Sure, Mataji, go ahead.
It is. Prabhuji, can you help? Sorry, Mataji, I just want to say if you are.
This is the highlighted part, Mataji. Dhritarashtra was all along.
Okay. Dhritarashtra was all along engaged in improving family affairs by raising the standard of living of his sons, or by usurping the property of the Pandavas for the sake of his own sons. These are common affairs for a man, grossly materialistic and without knowledge of the spiritual force. He does not see how this can drag one from heaven to hell. By the grace of his younger brother Vidura, Dhritarashtra was enlightened and could see his grossly illusory engagements, and by such enlightenment he was able to leave home for spiritual realization. Sri Narad Dev was just foretelling the way of his spiritual progress in a place which was sanctified by the flow of the celestial Ganges. Drinking water only without solid food is also considered fasting. This is necessary for advancement of spiritual knowledge. A foolish man wants to be a cheap yogi without observing the regulative principles. A man who has no control over the tongue at first can hardly become a yogi. Yogi and bhogi are two opposite terms. The bhogi, or the merry man who eats and drinks, cannot be a yogi, for a yogi is never allowed to eat and drink unrestrictedly. We may note that prophet how Dhritarashtra began. We may know that prophet how Dhritarashtra began his yoga system by drinking water only and sitting calmly in a place with a spiritual atmosphere, deeply absorbed in the thoughts of the Lord Hari, the personality of Godhead. So Mataji has already explained very nicely the do's and the don'ts and the details about Ashtanga yoga, and like here also saying that Dhritarashtra was all known. So how Dhritarashtra was, we all know that how he was trying to just trying to do everything good for his sons, and trying to observe the property of Pandavas for his sons. So he was madly in love with his sons, and he wanted actually doing the injustice with his brother's sons. And here they're saying that it's Prabhupada is trying, Narad Muni actually saying here that these are common affairs of a man grossly materialistic and without knowledge of spiritual. So the people we see in general, and in the material world, people have this propensity कि कैसे मुझे इसका भी मिल जाए, उसका भी मिल जाए, ऐसा भी हो जाए मेरे साथ. So this is very materialistic, and sometimes people don't realize that that how this can drag from one heaven to hell, and they create many problems for them. And there's a lot of learning from the Dhritarashtra story, and this line is so relevant with Dhritarashtra's story, that by doing this, how people drag themselves from heaven to hell. He was actually living a very good life, but he was so blindly in love for his kids that he wanted to do injustice with Pandavas. And by doing so, he actually created the hell for him. He actually saw his kids dying in that war, which was actually created by him, because he was not able to give the right knowledge to his kids. So from there, this started and where it ended. So Shri Narad Dev was just forecasting the way of his spiritual progress. So Narad Muni is just telling the Yudhishthira Maharaj at the Ganges, flow of celestial Ganges, they were there because like he was fasting, and he was taking bath in 3 times, as we read, I think in above paragraph, that he's just telling that how his journey, and just by drinking the water, he's able to purify himself and concentrate on the supreme God. And and he's saying that there is the bhogi and the yogi are just 2 opposite terms. The bhogi of the merry man who eats and drinks cannot be a yogi, because the yogi has really to follow the yam and niyam to become a yogi. So, and then people are not able to control the first steps. The first thing starts as a niyam is to control the tongue when it comes to eating or too much of talking. So the first thing is to be controlled as the tongue, because unrestricted tongue can cause a lot of problems outside and inside also. Like if we eat unrestrictedly, then our body from inside creates a lot of problem. And then if it's unrestricted talking, then outside we may say something wrong and then suffer because of that. So Prabhupada is mentioning that it's so important to to control the tongue. And then he's saying that we may know that Prophet how Dhritarashtra began his yoga system by drinking water only and sitting calmly in a peace with the spiritual atmosphere. And then Prabhupada saying, Narad Muni saying here that, a person just drinking a water, not eating a day is also considered a fast. So reading this, it reminds me that tomorrow is Ekadashi, although it is very difficult to just survive on water. But yeah, as much less we can eat is good. I'm just talking about myself, that how in the fast also, my mind goes after food. But after reading this, I would try to control that, if I can stick, limit as much, as less I can. Hari Bol. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mataji. Anybody else would like to share anything? Okay, so reading the translation again. On the banks of Saptasrot, Dhritarashtra is now engaged in beginning Ashtanga Yoga by bathing 3 times daily, in the morning, noon, and evening, by performing the Agnihotra sacrifice with fire, and by drinking only water. This helps one control the mind and the senses and frees one completely from the thoughts of family affection. All right, so tomorrow, Ekadashi, we can practice simple life, minimizing our propensities of doing anything which is not connected to Krishna directly, and even in that minimizing engagement of senses to anything which is not absolutely necessary for service of Krishna. And starts with the tongue. So if we control the tongue, all the other senses gets controlled. And of course, chanting more. The more we can chant, the better it is. Thank you very much, all the devotees. We'll conclude here. Very grateful for your association.